Okay, guys and gals, we've got an Ask Andy here with a bit of a difference today. I had this email off a channel viewer, Petra, and she says, "Dear Andy, first of all, thank you for your great informative YouTube videos. I've learnt a lot from them. You are welcome, Petra." But Petra's got this little project on the go where she wants to make prints of her artwork, and she started photographing her paintings in RAW using X-Rite's colour checker passport for white balance and camera profile. Petra, you don't need that. Camera profiles, I never use them. I would never dream of using them. They are more trouble than they're worth, and they are relatively useless unless you're always working under exactly the same lighting conditions with the same camera, a prime lens that never changes, because camera profiles done with a zoom lens, the actual profile only applies to that particular focal length, because quite a few zooms will actually give you a slight colour shift throughout their zoom range. So fundamentally there's a lot of variables that can really screw up a camera profile, so fundamentally you might as well stay away from it. That's my opinion anyway. No doubt there's thousands of people who will try arguing with me, and believe you me, it will be an argument they will never convince me of, no matter how hard they try. Anyway, I take the photos outdoors in overcast conditions, ISO 125, which I presume is base ISO for the little Panasonic Lumix she's using. Aperture priority f8, zoomed into 100mm focal length. I use Raw Therapee for raw editing. Yeah, Petra, you strike me as somebody who doesn't know a lot about the real nitty-gritty ins and outs of raw processing. You might have chosen yourself a slightly easier program to get to grips with, such as Lightroom, but you've got what you've got, and so we'll use Raw Therapee, and you also use an older version of Photoshop for printing. Well, that's fine, because the print module in Photoshop hasn't changed one iota. So when I applied the custom colour checker profile in Raw Therapee, yeah, okay, this is where you come unstuck if you're not careful. So the prints turned out quite nice, blah blah blah. My number one priority is to get started selling prints of my artwork. As for now, I'd like to keep my digital workflow as simple, easy and predictable as possible, but of course without compromising the quality of the prints. Blah blah blah, kind regards, Petra. Okay, and she sent these two raw files. So we've got one with the colour checker passport in, and we've got another one without the colour checker passport in it. So fundamentally what we're going to do is we're going to work up, there's the one without the colour checker passport, so fundamentally what we're going to do is work up this one that contains the colour checker passport, and then what we'll do is we'll copy the settings from here onto this one. Now then, the reason I've put this little JPEG up here is this is the official colour patch specifications from X-Rite. So here we've got the colour patches labelled 1 through to 24, and that table applies to this part of the colour checker. Now I'm going to say one thing from the get-go, Petra, and for anybody else who's listening who might be wanting to do this, this is not the place to put your colour checker. That should be up here somewhere. You need it in the middle of your frame. Why? Because your lens might have a little bit of vignetting on it, natural vignetting, where it makes the darker parts of the outer parts of your image go a little bit darker, and you have actually gone and put the most important patches on the colour checker passport. That's the white and the grey, you're going to put them right at the bottom so they're on the extreme. So if there is any vignetting, yep, it will apply to those patches, and it won't be applying to the centre of the image. So your colour checker passport always wants to be in the middle of your calibration shot, if you like. But anyway, we'll carry on. So the first thing I'm going to do is, obviously this image is a little bit dark, and it's very difficult, in fact it's bloody impossible for me to do this accurately because I can't see or view the original. All I can see is, or view, is a photograph of it. And really and truly, as an artwork copier, you need to see the actual artwork itself for obvious reasons. So I'm just going to be doing using a little bit of educated guesswork on here, but I would strongly suggest it's a little bit on the dark side. And the other thing is, I'm just looking at the white paint you've used here, Petra, and I'm just looking at other places, especially towards the bottom of the image, and it looks a little tiny bit darker. So I suspect your lighting might not be as even as you think. I mean, you've done it on an overcast day outside, yes, I understand that. Really and truly, you want to be doing this with the face of the portrait picture facing dead north, really. That's what I would strongly suggest. Face dead north, place the painting dead north, and photograph it that way, but also have it at an angle of 45 degrees to the expanse of sky that you're looking at or using for illumination. That way you'll negate any risk of any sort of light fall off from the top to the bottom of the image. But we will do whatever we can do with this shot, bearing in mind that I can't see the original. So I strongly suspect that it's a little bit on the dark side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start cranking up the exposure compensation until I think those whites look where they need to be. And are we getting there yet? Let's have a look. Now what we can do is we can use block number 19, and if you look at block number 19, it's 243, 243, 242, so it's a little bit on the warm side but hardly noticeable. But the lab value, or L value, for luminance is 96.5, and if we go and hover over it, we can see that it's only 86.8. So we actually need to turn everything up a little bit more, and let's just turn it up to one whole stop, and now we're at 95.5, and it really should be 96.5. Maybe take it up one more, but I reckon that might just take us over the top. 96.7, so it's a little bit on the bright side. So let's just highlight that and bring that down to 1.03, and now let's go and have a look at it. And that's 96.2, so we're just slightly under it, but I prefer to stay there because I know what's coming next. The other thing we need to do now is go and white balance the image. So in Raw Therapee we'll come and pick up the spot white balance tool, and we'll just come to patch number 21, which is this one, and we'll just white balance it by clicking on it. And you know, I mean, I don't know because I can't see the original, but I don't think that looks too bad at all. Now then, let's just have a look at the lab value for this patch here, which you can see is 67.7, and patch 21 should be 66.7, and we are 67.4, 67.7, so it's a little bit uneven, but I'd sort of have a tendency to let that go, if I'm honest. And fundamentally, that is white balanced, and it's turned up to where I'm guessing it looks very much akin to the actual original artwork. That's only a guess. It might be too bright, it might be too dark. Petra, when you do this, you will have the original in front of you so you can tell. I'm not going to do anything else to this image inside of Raw Therapee. I need to get this into Photoshop to do anything else to it, because I need to start checking against the proof colours, and you'll notice I am not using any camera profile and I'm not using any printer profile inside of Raw Therapee. It is, to be frank, too much like hard work. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to export this, and I want to keep as much of the colour as possible when I get it inside of Photoshop, because I want to use the colour conversions inside Photoshop, and I want the maximum amount of colour information. So I'm going to leave the output profile at Pro Photo. Alrighty, so I'm now going to come up to this thumbnail here, and I'm going to right click, and we're going to go Processing Profile Operations, and we're going to go Copy. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come into the other image, the one without the colour checker passport, and we're going to right click, and we're going to go Processing Profile Operations, Paste, and there we go. So this is the image that I want to scoot off to Photoshop. I'm actually going to save it though, and we're going to save it to the same folder, which in this case is Petra's artwork, and it's going to go in as a 16-bit uncompressed TIFF in the Pro Photo RGB colour space, and we're going to go and click OK. We'll just wait until it's finished processing, and there we go. So now what I can do is I can come over to my Finder, and I can go down to the drive I know it's on, which is Raw 1, and we can go to Petra Artwork, and I can go and take this TIFF here, and I can right click, and I can go Open with Adobe Photoshop. Okay, so here's the image inside of Photoshop, and because it's come out of Raw Therapee, I need to go to Image, Image Size, and the resolution is at 72 pixels per inch. We don't want it there, we want it in, because Petra is on an Epson printer. Epson printers work in base 360 if you like, because of the number of nozzles they have on the print head. So whereas ordinarily you would see me, if I was working on an ordinary digital image, I'd change this to 300. I'm actually going to change it to 360. Remember to uncheck the resample box. So I'm going to send this in at 360, and we'll click OK, and as you can see, nothing's changed apart from the resolution of the image. So because this is flat artwork, the one thing I want to do is to use the Adobe ACE color conversion engine to drop this image down, because it's not a continuous tone image, it's an artwork, a flat artwork. Really and truly, all the colours contained in this image will exist and be replicatable, I don't know, either one of those two, pretty much in the sRGB colour space. So I'm simply going to go to Image, no I'm not, I'm going to go Edit, and I'm going to go to Convert to Profile, and we're going to use the Adobe ACE engine to convert this to sRGB. The reason I didn't do this in Raw Therapee is I am never quite sure what engine they're using to do their colour conversions, but as far as I'm concerned, the best one is Adobe ACE. So I'm going to convert it using the relative colorimetric rendering intent, and I'm also going to be using black point compensation. So I'm just going to go and uncheck the preview first. So let's just bring this box over to one side and uncheck the preview and see if the picture changes a lot. And there you go, it doesn't change at all, not that I can see anyway. So we'll click OK. So now we've got this image at 300 pixels per inch and it's in the sRGB colour space. Now what we need to do is to go to View, and we'll go Proof Setup, and we need to come to Custom. And this is where Petra, you've made a bit of a rod for your own back, if you understand that English saying, because what you've done is you've gone and bought Hahnemuhle museum etching for your SCP-800 printer. So there we go. So now we've set the actual device to simulate under custom proof condition. We're actually simulating Hahnemuhle Fine Art matte ink museum etching on your SCP-800 printer. Let's turn the preview off and let's turn the preview on. So you can see straight away what that paper does to your image. It makes it go a little bit washed out in contrast, but I really wouldn't worry about that too much. But you can see the blacks are getting washed out, and so are the blues on his little romper suit or whatever it is he's got on. So we're in relative colorimetric with black point compensation. Let's just take black point compensation off. Preview. Sort of goes a bit muddy. I would actually keep the black point compensation on. Maybe. Should we? Off. The black point compensation is actually taking a little bit of detail out here in this blue, but it is actually lifting the blacks up. So what we're doing is we're keeping the contrast under control. So what I think we'll do is we'll keep black point compensation turned on. So we'll go and click OK. So we go to Image and duplicate the image. So if I duplicate that image and I go to View, Window, Arrange, and we go to 2 up vertical. Okay, so this is our active image. So if I go to View, Proof Setup, yes, we haven't got any proofing on this image, so this is the image as it stands or as it stood, and this is the proof copy. So what I want to do here is to just go to Adjustments on this image, which is our one. As you can see, it's been named for SCP-800 museum etching, and I just want to make sure that I've got the gamut warning turned on. Ooh, right. So everywhere we can see these little grey blobs and splodges, that's indicating that the colour is out of gamut for the paper printer combination. What we can do is we can pull on a curves adjustment layer, and if we make a little point on the curve and lift it up, you can see we're making a bit of a difference to the greys or those out of gamut colours, but we're having a massive effect on the image, which is a detrimental effect. It's making it too low contrast. Now this problem is solely being caused by your choice of paper. Let's see if we can fix this first by doing something like that. But now it looks too washed out. Yes, we've got rid of the gamut warning everywhere, so we've got nothing out of gamut. But if I go and put another adjustment layer on over the top with another curve, and because all I want to do is to try and add a little bit of contrast back to the image. Can I actually add contrast? Let's just keep trying. Pull it down. We're getting a little tiny bit of clipping. Not as bad as it was, but if we turn those two layers off, we can see we have stripped quite a bit of contrast out of that, and that to me is a bit of a problem. We could run this and it wouldn't be so far wide of the mark. We could actually bring the black point up a little bit like that, and we have got reduced colour clipping in the blue from where we started, but really and truly, if I was to turn these layers off, so now we can see the clipping for this museum etching paper, but if I went to where do we need to go? Window, no I don't, view, and I go to proof setup like that, and I just simply change the paper to say Annie Mueller's Silk Bar Writer. Now you see 99% of that clipping has disappeared, and we've still kept the contrast in the image. If I went to photo pair, what's that do? So see, that starts bringing the clipping back, because you're getting to the point where you're using a lower contrast paper. So if you go to their gloss bar writer, that adds a bit more punch, but we've still got some of that clipping left. That silk bar writer would be quite useful, and that would be really simple to get rid of that clipping on, but I don't think you'd notice any sort of misprinting if you switch to that paper. So fundamentally, we've not made too bad a job of that image for printing onto your museum etching. If we just click OK, and then we just go and put those two layers back on. But really and truly, we would be better off printing on a higher contrast paper that's got a slightly larger colour gamut, such as the Silk Bar Writer. So it's entirely up to you, Petra, which way you want to go. But as you can see, using a combination of Photoshop and Raw Therapee, it is quite easy to actually get your image to look right, as long as you make your job as simple as possible by actually choosing the right paper to print on in the first place. And really and truly, if you want to stick with Annie Mueller paper, that Annie Mueller Photo Silk Bar Writer would actually make your job a lot easier, and thus lead to somewhat more accurate printing. Anyway, guys and girls, and Petra especially, I hope that video's been useful to you. I've tried to make it as short as possible, but it's not a short job. It's a simple job, but not a short one. So until the next time, guys and girls, I'm Petra. I shall speak to you very soon. Tooroo.